Commander Maya Chen watched the evacuation ships disappear into Kepler 186's violet sky, her jaw set in grim determination. The Colonial Defense Center's holographic display showed thousands of civilian life signs safely clearing the atmosphere, but that wasn't what held her attention. It was the massive Nexari warfleet, emerging from hyperspace, silver daggers against the darkness of space. Final civilian transport clear of the gravity well. Lieutenant Santos reported from his station, voice steady despite the circumstances. Colonial evacuation 98% complete. Maya nodded, her fingers dancing across the tactical display. And the Nexari. 12 capital ships, Commander. Multiple fighter squadrons deploying. There, Santos paused, double-checking his readings. They're not pursuing the civilian ships. Of course they weren't. The Nexari considered themselves evolved beyond such barbarism. They were civilized conquerors who only engaged military targets. It was part of what made them so dangerous, their absolute conviction in their own superiority. The defense center's walls trembled as the first orbital bombardment began. Maya watched as the colony's outer shields flared brilliant blue, absorbing the initial salvos. They wouldn't hold for long, but they didn't need to. Just long enough to get the remaining civilians out. Commander, a new voice cut through the command center, smooth, cultured, and utterly alien. The holoprojector sparked to life, revealing the towering form of Supreme Commander Vaxter of the Nexari Expeditionary Force. His crystalline exoskeleton caught the light, creating rainbow refractions across his aristocratic features. "This is a courtesy communication," Vaxter continued, mandibles clicking in what Maya had learned was amusement. "Your defensive capabilities are thoroughly analyzed and found wanting. Surrender now, and we will ensure your remaining forces are treated according to Galactic convention." Maya straightened, meeting the alien's compound eyes. "This is Commander Chen of the Colonial Defense Force. I appreciate the courtesy, Supreme Commander, but I'm afraid I'll have to decline." The Nexari's antennae twitched. Surprise, perhaps. "You cannot hope to prevail, Commander. Our technological superiority is absolute. Your resistance is inefficient." "Perhaps," Maya allowed, even as she signaled her crew to begin implementing defense pattern Echo. "But we humans have a long history of being inefficient." The alien's expression shifted to what might have been pity. "Your species is young, Commander. There is no shame in acknowledging when you are outmatched. Our studies show humans possess reasonable intelligence for your development stage. Surely you can calculate the odds." Maya smiled, thinking of the preparations they'd made, the contingencies they planned. The Nexari had studied humans, yes, but they'd studied them like scientists observing simple organisms. They hadn't understood. "Supreme Commander, let me share something about humans. We've spent our entire history being outmatched. By nature, by predators, by each other. Being outmatched taught us something valuable." She paused, noting with satisfaction that the evacuation's completion indicator had ticked up to 99%. "It taught us to cheat." Before Vaxter could respond, Maya gave the signal. Across the colony, seemingly inactive mining charges detonated in precise sequence, not aimed at the Nexari forces. No, that would have been expected. Instead, they triggered the collapse of specific geological formations that their scientists had discovered channeled and amplified the planet's unique magnetic field. The effect was immediate. The carefully calculated collapse sent a massive electromagnetic pulse through the area, but not the crude, unfocused kind that early human warfare had employed. This pulse was shaped, guided by the planet's natural formations, focused like a lens. Nexari ships, with their sophisticated sensors and crystalline computing cores, suddenly found their systems screaming with contradictory data. Fighter squadrons veered wildly as their neural interfaces scrambled. The elegant formation of capital ships began to drift, their perfect coordination shattered. What is this?" Vaxter demanded, his image flickering as the pulse interfered with communications. This level of electromagnetic manipulation shouldn't be possible with your technology. It isn't our technology, Supreme Commander, Maya explained, watching as her forces moved into pre-planned positions, taking advantage of the chaos. It's the planets. We just figured out how to use it. Like I said, we cheat. The alien commander's response was lost as the transmission cut out. Maya turned to her crew, each of them at their stations, ready and determined. We have maybe 10 minutes before they adapt. Let's make them count. Execute Defense Pattern Echo, Phase 2. As her orders were relayed and the real battle began, Maya allowed herself a moment of grim satisfaction. The Nexari had expected a primitive species fighting a losing battle with inferior technology. Instead, they were facing something their studies and simulations hadn't prepared them for. Humans fighting human style. The next few hours would teach the Nexari something their detailed studies had missed, that humanity's greatest weapon wasn't their technology, or even their determination. It was their capacity to look at a superior force and think not, how do we beat them, but how do we change the rules? As the battle began in earnest, Maya Chen prepared to give the Nexari an education they wouldn't soon forget. Supreme Commander Vaxter stood before the High Command display, his crystalline form radiating barely contained fury. The tactical hologram showed their fleet's disarray in merciless detail. Capital ships struggling to restore primary systems, fighter squadrons in disorganized retreat, ground forces unable to establish a secure landing zone. Impossible. General Kurash hissed through the quantum link, her image flickering with interference. Their technological level is documented, verified. They shouldn't be capable of this. And yet, Vaxter gestured at the display. Here we are, our advanced fleet hobbled by primitive aliens who refuse to acknowledge their proper place in the galaxy's hierarchy. The human defense forces were moving with practiced precision, taking advantage of the electromagnetic disruption to establish fortified positions. Every attempt to land troops was met with precisely targeted resistance. It wasn't just the effectiveness of their response that disturbed Vaxter. It was the obvious preparation. They had been ready for this. The humans knew, he realized, mandibles clicking in agitation. They knew what this planet could do. They weren't settling here randomly. They were preparing. In the command center below his observation platform, Nexari analysts worked frantically to adapt their systems. The crystalline computing cores that gave their technology its edge were proving surprisingly vulnerable to the planet's manipulated magnetic fields. Each attempted countermeasure seemed to be met with a new variation of the human attack. Supreme Commander, a junior analyst called up, we're detecting unusual energy signatures from the human defensive positions. They appear to be adapting their shields to match our attack frequencies. Vaxter's antennae twitched in disbelief. That's not possible. Their shield technology is decades behind ours. They couldn't possibly. He stopped, remembering Commander Chen's words. We cheat. Show me the shield modulation patterns, he ordered. The display shifted, showing complex energy wavelengths. As he studied them, his compound eyes widened in understanding. They're not matching our technology. They're using our own attacks to power their defenses, like a primitive species using a predator's strength against it. The humans hadn't tried to develop shields as advanced as Nexari technology. They'd simply found a way to redirect the energy of superior weapons. Elegant, in its barbaric way. On the main tactical display, Commander Chen's forces continued their coordinated defense. Each Nexari advance was met with seemingly crude but devastatingly effective countermeasures. Mining lasers, repurposed to take advantage of the planet's magnetic anomalies, cut through sophisticated Nexari shields. Civilian terraforming equipment had been converted into weapons that turned the very ground against landing forces. We must escalate, General Kurash declared. Bring in the World Breaker fleet. Reduce their positions to ash. No, Vaxter's response surprised even himself. That would be inefficient. He noticed his fellow commander's surprise at his use of their species' highest criticism. But he pressed on, understanding growing with each word. Look at their tactics. They're not trying to defeat us. They know they can't. They're keeping us off balance, protecting something. The question isn't how to destroy them. It's what are they protecting? The command center fell silent as the implications sank in. The humans weren't fighting a war of conquest or even purely of defense. This was something else. New signal from the human commander, an operator announced. Commander Chen's image appeared, looking remarkably composed despite the battle raging around her. Supreme Commander, I'm offering you a choice. You can continue this attack, lose more ships and troops to a primitive species, and eventually overwhelm us through sheer numbers. Or you can ask yourself why we're really here, on this specific planet, with these specific defenses prepared. Vaxter studied her expression, seeing none of the fear or awe that most species showed when addressing Nexari leadership. You believe you know something we don't, Commander. I know that the Nexari pride themselves on efficiency, on superior thinking. So think, Supreme Commander, why would we put a colony here? Why prepare these specific defenses? What makes this planet worth defending against a superior force? Before Vaxter could respond, new alarms blared through the command center. The tactical display shifted, showing massive energy readings from deep beneath the colony. Energy spike. An analyst called out, "Something's happening below the surface." As Vaxter watched the readings climb, he began to understand. The humans hadn't just been studying the planet's magnetic fields for defense. They'd found something else, something that made this seeming backwater world worth everything they'd committed to protecting it. Well, Supreme Commander. Chen's voice carried a hint of challenge, ready to have a real conversation about why we're both here. Looking at the human commander's confident expression, Vaxter felt something he hadn't experienced in centuries. Doubt. The Nexari had come here believing they were dealing with primitives. Now he had to consider a disturbing possibility, that perhaps they weren't the only ones doing the studying. The next move would define not just this battle, but potentially the future of Nexari-human relations. For the first time in his long career, Supreme Commander Vaxter found himself unsure of what that move should be. Would they cling to their pride or face the possibility that they had severely underestimated humanity? Deep beneath the colony's surface, Maya Chen strode through ancient corridors that defied conventional physics. The walls thrummed with energy, covered in symbols that seemed to shift and change when viewed directly. Behind her, a small team of colonial scientists worked frantically at portable terminals, while ahead, Nexari representatives followed with poorly concealed wonder. As you can see, Supreme Commander, Maya gestured to the surrounding structure. This is why we chose this particular planet, and why we couldn't simply evacuate and let you have it. Vaxter moved with careful precision, his crystalline form reflecting the strange lights that pulsed through the walls. This technology, it's not human. No, Maya agreed. And it's not Nexari either. Our best estimates put this facility at roughly 100,000 years old. We found it 3 years ago during initial colonial surveys. The alien commander's antennae twitched. And you kept this discovery hidden. Wouldn't you? Maya countered. A pre-human civilization's technology, specifically designed to interact with this planet's unique magnetic field. We knew it would draw attention. We just didn't expect it to be yours quite so soon. They reached a vast circular chamber, its ceiling lost in darkness above. At its center, a column of pure energy rose from floor to ceiling, contained by technology that shouldn't have been possible at humanity's current development level. One of the Nexari scientists, introduced as Chief Researcher Zelna, moved forward to study the energy readings. Fascinating. The power output is extraordinary. But how did you activate it? Our studies suggest human neural architecture shouldn't be compatible with such advanced systems. Maya smiled. We didn't activate it. We found it like this. But we did learn to communicate with it, after a fashion. She nodded to Dr. Sarah Cohen, her chief scientist, who activated a holographic display. The facility responds to conscious thought, Dr. Cohen explained. but not in ways we initially expected. It doesn't want direct control. It wants conversation, partnership. Previous attempts to dominate or control its systems failed catastrophically. Vaxter's compound eyes focused on Maya, which is why our attempts to breach the colony's defenses were repelled. You weren't just using the planet's magnetic field. You were working with it. Through the facility's interfaces, yes, Maya confirmed. It's why we needed time to evacuate the civilians. Not just for their safety, but because each trained operator who can communicate with the facility multiplies its effectiveness. We couldn't risk losing any of them. A low rumble shook the chamber, and the energy column pulsed brighter. Dr. Cohen checked her readings, eyes widening. Commander, it's responding to their presence. The facility, it recognizes the Nexari. The revelation hit like a physical force. The proud Nexari, who viewed themselves as among the galaxy's most advanced species, had been someone else's research subject. Impossible, one of the Nexari scientists protested. Our historical records are incomplete, Zelna interrupted, moving closer to study the data. Our earliest records show our species already possessed advanced crystalline technology, but its origins were always unclear. Maya watched the Nexari process this information, noting how their rigid certainty began to crack. The facility's creators didn't just study species, they guided them. Left behind fragments of knowledge, technological seeds that would grow in unique ways based on each species' natural development. And humans? Vaxter asked, his voice uncharacteristically subdued. Did they study your kind as well? No, Maya said. That's what makes us unique. We're the first species to find one of their facilities since they vanished. We're not in their database as subjects. We're here as potential successors. The chamber hummed, and new holographic displays sprang to life around them, showing star maps, technological schematics, and biological data from countless worlds. The facility was responding to their conversation, offering up its secrets. This is why we couldn't leave, Maya explained, and why we can't let any one species control it. This facility isn't just a repository of advanced technology. It's a key to understanding how species develop, how they can be guided. In the wrong hands, it could be used to manipulate the development of entire civilizations, Vaxter finished, as was done to my people. Maya nodded, which is why I'm proposing something unprecedented. A joint operation, human intuition and adaptability, Nexari technological expertise, working together to understand this facility and its purpose. The energy column pulsed again, brighter this time, as if approving of the suggestion. Around them, the ancient machinery hummed with new purpose. Your species is young, Vaxter said, echoing his earlier words but with a very different tone. But perhaps that is exactly what is needed here. Fresh eyes, unbound by millennia of assumptions. The chamber shook again, more violently this time. Dr. Cohen's instruments erupted with new readings. Commander, she called out, something's happening. The facility, it's fully activating. I think it was waiting for this. Maya and Vaxter exchanged looks, ancient rivalry giving way to shared wonder as the chamber around them came fully to life, ready to share secrets that would change both their civilizations forever. The real discovery was just beginning. Alarms blared through the ancient facility as its systems surged with unprecedented power. Maya Chen and Supreme Commander Vaxter stood before banks of holographic displays, watching as energy readings spiraled beyond predicted parameters. The facility's power output has tripled, Dr. Cohen reported, her fingers flying across adaptive interfaces. The magnetic field disruptions are expanding exponentially. At this rate, they'll reach orbital range in minutes. We need to shut it down, Vaxter declared, his crystalline form vibrating with tension. The energy signatures could attract unwanted attention. Maya knew he wasn't just being cautious. The facility's activation was broadcasting its presence across space like a beacon. Too late, she said, pointing to a new alert. Long-range sensors are picking up multiple hyperspace signatures, large ones. The Nexari commander's antennae flattened against his head. The collective. They're responding faster than I anticipated. The collective. Maya turned to him sharply. You know who's coming. A faction within Nexari space, Vaxter explained grimly. Purists who believe our species' technological superiority gives us the right to guide, or control, other civilizations' development. They'd been watching Earth for some time. New holograms materialized, showing massive ships emerging from hyperspace, vessels that dwarfed even the Nexari capital ships. Their design was similar but more aggressive, bristling with weapons that crackled with barely contained energy. Commander. Lieutenant Santos' voice came through Maya's comm. 5 collective dreadnoughts just dropped out of hyperspace. They're charging weapons, but they're not targeting us. They're targeting the Nexari fleet. Maya watched as Vaxter's forces scrambled to defensive positions. The collective ships opened fire, their advanced weapons tearing through shields that had been weakened by the facility's magnetic disruptions. They mean to eliminate all witnesses, Vaxter said quietly. Both our forces. They want the facility for themselves. The chamber shuddered as the battle above intensified. Maya's tactical display showed her remaining forces moving to support the Nexari ships, but against the collective's superior firepower, it seemed futile. We can't let them take the facility, Maya stated. You've seen what it contains, the power to manipulate entire civilization's development. In their hands. Agreed. Vaxter nodded. But our options are limited. Even combined, our forces cannot match their firepower. Maya studied the facility's pulsing energy column, an idea forming. Maybe we don't have to match it. Dr. Cohen, the facility responds to conscious intent, correct? It wants partnership, not control. Yes, but the scientist's eyes widened as she realized what Maya was suggesting. Commander, interfacing at that level would be incredibly dangerous. The neural load alone could. Could what? Vaxter interrupted, his compound eyes fixed on Maya. Could burn out her mind. Cohen finished. The facility wasn't designed for direct human neural architecture. Brief contacts are one thing, but a deep interface. Maya moved toward the energy column. We don't have a choice. The collective's weapons will breach our defenses in minutes. Unless, she turned to Vaxter. Your crystalline neural structure. It's more compatible with ancient technology, isn't it? The Nexari commander straightened. You suggest a joint interface, human and Nexari consciousness working in parallel. The facility wants partnership, Maya said. So let's give it one. Your neural compatibility, my human adaptability. Together, we might be able to handle the load. Above them, another explosion rocked the chamber as collective forces pressed their attack. Time was running out. Vaxter moved to stand beside Maya. The risk is extreme. Such an interface has never been attempted. Story of human history, Maya smiled grimly. Attempting the impossible when there's no other choice. They stepped into position on either side of the energy column. Dr. Cohen and Zelna worked frantically to modify the interface protocols, creating a bridge between human and Nexari neural patterns. Ready, Cohen announced, her voice tense. But Commander, we don't know what this will do to either of you. Maya met Vaxter's compound eyes. Ready to make history, Supreme Commander. The Nexari's mandibles clicked in what might have been amusement. After you, Commander Chen. They reached out simultaneously, touching the interface panels. The facility's energy surged through them both, and the world exploded into light and knowledge and power beyond anything either species had imagined. Through their combined consciousness, they felt the facility's true purpose unfold, not just a repository of knowledge, but a test, a chance for different species to prove they could move beyond their prejudices and work together. As their merged awareness expanded through the facility's systems, Maya and Vaxter began to understand what needed to be done. Above them, the collective ships pressed their attack, unaware that they were about to learn a lesson about the true meaning of technological superiority. The breaking point had arrived, but not the one their enemies had expected. The facility's consciousness enveloped Maya Chen and Supreme Commander Vaxter, their merged awareness expanding beyond physical limitations. Through the ancient systems, they perceived reality on multiple levels: the raging space battle above, the facility's vast networks below, and the intricate patterns of possibility that connected them all. Energy synchronization at 200%. Dr. Cohen's voice seemed to come from a great distance. Neural patterns are. I've never seen anything like this. They're not just interfacing with the facility, they're evolving with it. Through their shared consciousness, Maya felt Vaxter's ancestral memories surface, the forgotten history of how the facility's creators had guided the early Nexari, not through force or control, but through carefully placed discoveries that allowed them to develop their crystalline technology naturally. Your people weren't just studied. Maya's thoughts merged with the facility's vast database. You were being prepared. They saw potential in your species, just as they saw it in humanity's adaptability. Above, the collective ships pressed their attack, their weapons gradually overwhelming the combined human and Nexari defenses. But now, through the facility's systems, Maya and Vaxter saw more than just the battle. They saw the fear driving the collective's actions. Fear of change, of losing their perceived superiority, of having to accept that their entire worldview might be wrong. They're not ready. Vaxter's thoughts resonated through their connection. The collective, they cannot be allowed to access this knowledge. They would use it to enforce stagnation, not growth. Together, they reached deeper into the facility's systems, understanding flowing between them. The ancient machinery responded to their unified purpose, channeling energy in ways neither species had imagined possible. The planet's magnetic field began to pulse in new patterns, guided by their combined will. In orbit, the collective ships suddenly found their advanced weapons systems failing, their energy readings dropping to critical levels. The crystalline technology they relied on wasn't just being disrupted. It was being reprogrammed at its most fundamental level. Impossible. The collective commander's transmission burst through all channels. Our systems are superior. You cannot. Superior technology isn't about power. Maya and Vaxter responded in unison, their merged consciousness speaking through the facility's communications array. It's about understanding, something your faction has forgotten. The facility's energy column pulsed with blinding intensity as they activated its final protocols. Across the battlefield, collective ships found themselves trapped in a web of magnetic fields that turned their own technology against them. Their weapons powered down, their engines failed, and their mighty vessels hung powerless in space. But Maya and Vaxter weren't finished. Through the facility's archives, they accessed its original purpose, not just to guide species' technological development, but to prepare them for something greater. The facility's creators, Maya's consciousness expanded with understanding. They were preparing us all for this moment. Different species learning to work together, to move beyond competition into true cooperation. A test, Vaxter agreed, his thoughts merging with hers. Not of technological superiority, but of wisdom, of being ready to share power rather than hoard it. As their shared revelation peaked, the facility responded with one final surge of energy. The ancient machinery hummed to life, systems dormant for millennia awakening to their combined purpose. In orbit, the disabled collective ships watched in awe as the planet itself seemed to transform, revealing technologies beyond even their understanding. Slowly, carefully, Maya and Vaxter began to disengage from the interface. As their consciousness separated, both carried with them knowledge that would change their civilizations forever. The facility had given them more than just technology. It had shown them a path forward. Hours later, as the dust settled and a collective leadership was taken into custody by joint human Nexari forces, Maya stood with Vaxter in the facility's main chamber, both forever changed by their experience. "What happens now?" she asked, watching as human and Nexari scientists worked side by side, studying the facility's gifts with shared wonder. Now Vaxter's crystalline form caught the light of the rising sun streaming through newly revealed windows. We do what the facility's creators intended. We learn from each other. We grow together. They chose this moment, Maya realized. They knew eventually someone would find this place, but they waited until species were ready to work together rather than fight for control. And humanity's role? Vaxter asked, though his tone suggested he already knew the answer. Maya smiled, watching as another transport of joint scientific teams arrived. We do what humans have always done. We adapt. We learn. We help others see that sometimes the best way to advance isn't to be the strongest or the most advanced. It's to be willing to work together. The facility hummed around them, its ancient purpose fulfilled. As the twin suns of Kepler 186f rose fully above the horizon, they cast their light on something unprecedented. Humans and Nexari working together, neither species dominant, both growing stronger through cooperation than they ever had through competition. It was, Maya thought, watching her people work alongside their former enemies, a new dawn in more ways than one.